Why would we want to do research in PR?
So you're informed.
To be informed? Okay, yeah. What else? We don't just pull things out of like nowhere. But go ahead.
I would say it's because like when you're representing someone as their agent or whatever, you don't want to be surprised about anything, so you make sure you keep up with everything.
What you're getting at is called secondary research. Because you want to know you want to know about your client before you do anything for them. You want to know, yes ma'am?
You want to be more credible, like a credible source.
You do want to be more credible. If you do your homework, it's just like anything else. You do your homework, you're more credible than if you don't do your homework. So here's why we research, in addition to what you guys have said. You're all right. We don't create campaigns in a vacuum. We actually do our homework. We find out all about our client. We find out about the different publics that we're going to be serving for the client. And as a result, the things that we find when we research are going to shape things like messages. They're going to shape things like tactics, like how we reach these people. They're going to shape things like, I already said messages. They're going to shape things like themes. They're going to shape every part of the campaign. But we got to know what's going on before we can crank out a campaign. Does that make sense? Because ideally, we want our campaign and our messages to resonate with our public. So by resonate, I mean, what do I mean by that? We want the campaigns to fit with who the people are. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Does that make sense, or does that?
Not really.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. Okay, so each of us as an individual, we carry with us our individual experiences, our families, maybe like religion, our education. We carry all these different characteristics of who we are. Now, if a message is in a foreign language addressed to somebody that has totally different experiences from us, we're not going to get it. We're not going to pay any attention to it. But now, if it's keyed into our experiences and our lifestyles and who we are as people, we're more apt to pay attention and be moved to do something by a message. Does that make sense? Does that make better sense than resonates?
So if they're like the message, they're going to want to, they're more interested in it because they can relate to it?
There is a better chance that they will be more interested if they can relate to it. You guys remember the elaboration likelihood model? Do we want to go back to that? We can talk about that in a second. Let's do it for just a quick second. Remember, elaboration likelihood. Let's see. This is reversed here. We've got low elaboration. Here we've got high elaboration. When a message, the things that affect high elaboration are things like when the message equals, how can I put this? Us. Let's just say that. If we are religious and the message is religious, and provided the right cues are in there, we're more likely to think about it. If we're highly educated and a message is addressed or written in a way that's designed to reach people who are highly educated, we're more likely to think about it. Now, if a message is, written for a 3-year-old, you guys read children's books? Mm-hmm. I read them. Okay, the message is, how many of you guys are likely to read? Okay, I've already asked you guys. Nobody reads children's books, so if somebody gives you something written like it's written for a children's book, you're probably not going to think too much about it. Does that make sense? Because you guys are highly educated. Everybody in here is highly educated. You are probably in the top 10% of educated people in the United States. I just pulled that number out of the air, but still, most people don't get a college education. But does that make sense? The more like us a message in a campaign is, the more likely we are to pay attention to it. The less like us a campaign is, or message or themes are, the less likely we're to pay attention to it. And so we've got to do research. We've got to figure out who our publics are so that we can come up with messages that are consonant with who they are and hopefully sway them to do something or to believe something in favor of the company for whom we're working. I'm getting like dead looks here. Does this make any sense?
Yeah.
It's Tuesday. Damn it. Yeah, Tuesday you're supposed to be bright. It's Thursday after big ass class night.
Well, it is homecoming. Yeah, it's homecoming.
Yeah, this is homecoming weekend.
That's homecoming week.
All right, so okay, so you guys might be paying more attention to things like homecoming party, come check out something or another. I'm trying to tie this to elaboration likelihood model. I'm failing miserably at it.
How about we're all thinking about getting out of the
Okay, you're already thinking. No, hold on. You're already thinking about homecoming parties and homecoming excitement and homecoming adventure. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking about. You think about this weekend. You guys are thinking about the weekend. So, how likely are you guys to be paying attention to something going on next month?
Thanksgiving, because I don't have to.
No, Thanksgiving. Hold on, I forgot about that. All right. November 18th. Who gives a crap about November 18th?
Drink.
Help me out here. Okay, let's go further into the future. Let's go to February 28th. Is it a leap?
That's my.
We don't leave. No, it's 2015 is my leap year. Okay, all right. Don't answer that. All right, the point is, you guys are probably more in tune with messages that are immediate, things that are going on right now, things that are related to homecoming, things that are related to the weekend, things that are related to your immediate vicinity of your life than you are things in, I don't know, March of 2018. Am I right? Yeah, kind of right. You're thinking more about this weekend than you are even this class, actually. So this class, if we're doing a PR campaign for this class, you're probably going to be less likely to pay attention to it than you are a PR campaign to promote something going on this weekend. I would venture to guess that that is true. At least kind of. All right. There's the elaboration likelihood model for you. Let's move on. All right. So what do we research? We got to understand situations. You got to understand the organization, its publics. And it's through this understanding of what's going on that we're able to develop effective messages and effective strategies. You guys are not going to respond to anything I say that has anything to do with March of 2018. But if I say, there's going to be beer here at the tailgate party this weekend, come check it out, you guys are going to be much more likely to respond to that or to think about it. Possibly even dream about it at night. Maybe. Yeah? All right. Also, when we do our homework, when we do research, it allows us to identify opportunities and issues, matters of concern for the organization. It helps us find those people that are angry with us for whatever reason. We talked a little bit about this before exam 3 regarding environmental scanning, or maybe that was one of the slides we didn't get to. There were 2 slides a couple of weeks ago that, or actually last week on Thursday, that we didn't have a chance to get to. I mean on Tuesday, because we ran out of time. So environmental scanning may have been on that, but we're always looking for special opportunities and things that, waves that we can ride that can help promote good public relations between an organization and its publics. You guys will learn all about opportunities when you take my case studies class. Who else taking case studies in spring?
What number is that?
383. No, 382. I'm sorry, 382. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. 5. Awesome. I don't know what 308 advertising is. I think that's Dr. Wong's class. My point being, you guys are going to learn all about opportunities when you get into case studies. It's pretty much every one of those case studies is a crappy PR word, but they found an opportunity and they wrote it. Rode, R-O-D-E. Does that make sense? All right. What else do we research? It gives us essential information about the organization. What is essential to know? If you're going to like be in a PR firm, or if you're going to do PR for an organization, what do you need to know about the organization?
What was the question?
Oh wait, I got to do a good slide here. What do you guys need to know? You're going to go do PR for somebody. Say you're going to do PR. Meg, you're in charge of PR for PRSSA, and you were kind of thrust into this role a couple of weeks ago. What kind of things do you think you need to know about the organization to be able to do effective? I don't mean to pick on you. Actually, I do, because when I pick on people, it gets that heart rate going, and various like dopamine release, various things going on in your head that make you remember things better. So what kind of stuff?
Probably like who the public are.
Very good. The background, that is a critical one right there. The history of the organization. Very good. Anybody else? What else? What else do we need to know about organization? How about, well, before I tell you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What their goals are, like what they're trying to do.
Very good. The mission. What's the mission of the organization? What are their objectives, goals, things like that? Exactly. Very good. All right. Well, we need to know more than just these things. We need to know the corporate philosophy. Coca-Cola has a philosophy. You guys can look it up if you want to. I forget what it is, but I know they have one. Most corporations have some kind of philosophy. We also need to know media coverage of the company. How is the company covered by the media? Poor coverage usually points at poor media relations, and if the company has poor media relations, then they've got to do something to improve that, right? Does that make sense? If people are covering you in a nasty light, you got to figure out a way to turn that frown upside down. You also need to know the issues important to a company. Sometimes this includes legislation. If your company does something that is regulated by the government, I don't know, transporting chemicals from factory to wherever they're used, something like that, then you need to know about regulation. You need to know about government. Company initiatives. What is the company trying to accomplish? What various things, little projects does the company have going on? Are they trying to grow different markets? Are they trying to, I don't know, increase brand share? I mean, who can tell me what BDI stands for? BDI is BDI. Does anybody know? This is kind of an off-topic question, but it's totally relevant. A little off-topic. BDI, CDI, you guys know what reach and frequency are? And gross rating points? Okay. That's just a brief survey. I'm developing a class for next semester, and it's got a lot of marketing stuff in it. But anyway, since you guys don't know this, then I'm in the right place doing this class. We're doing the 470. Now you guys have to take it too. Is everybody here 2012 or later? Okay, yeah, you guys got to take 470. It's now a capstone class. And, all right, I got off track. Sorry about that. I do that sometimes. Tangents, eh? All right. What else do you need to know about organization? You need to know the potential problems they're going to be facing. What kind of issues are going on? What are people saying? Somebody's already said the history of the company at one point. History will often dictate problems. I don't think I need to tell you guys that. You guys had history 131 and 132. What do we call this? An analysis of strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. What's that called?
SWOT.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. The SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. Those opportunities and threats. We'll do that in campaigns and also to some extent, we will do it in PR writing, 381. What?
Yeah, I was trying to do the acronym. Like
Yeah, I was like the A, and it's the A.
No, there's no A in it.
Oh, SWOT.
SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. All right, so what we learned? We learned it's going to be beer at the tailgate. We never learned what SWOT stands for. All right. You've also got to know the effectiveness of the current communication strategy. If a company's not reaching people, but they keep sending out a message, what might that indicate? If they're having like zero effects from their PR campaign.
they're sending out the wrong message and they don't know what their public wants.
Exactly. Let's go back to this thing over here real quick. Yeah, they're not resonating with the public. The public's not thinking about what they're saying. So their message is off. So we've got to be able to assess that. We've got to be able to assess whether the message, whether the campaign is reaching people. I mean, I don't know, if you're trying to hit like 98-year-old people in a nursing home and you're using social media, that's probably not the best tactic for that. I mean, you may be on with the message, but the tactics can sometimes not reach people. Or you're trying to hit, like you guys, newspapers. Who reads a newspaper daily? You know, one person? All right, so it's unlikely that we could do much in a PR campaign for advertising in a newspaper with your particular age group. All right, so this is what we need to know about the organization. There's a ton of stuff we need to know about the organization. And this is what Shamika brought up here a second ago. Sorry to make you nervous, but you suggested something that indicates secondary research. See, you don't really have to do any primary research to find these things out. You can get online and find out most of this stuff about companies. But to look at publics, you've got to actually do in general, some kind of primary research. I mean, you might get stuff from like the Pew Center or various secondary or census or various sources of data that poll people. But a lot of times you have to do some primary research for this. So about publics, you need to know who they are. You need to know what's going on with them, the trends that are important to them, issues that are important to them, things that motivate them. Purchase patterns. I pay more attention to my purchase patterns these days because I'm spending like, I think $60 a month on diapers. And then another, I don't know, like $10 a month maybe on wipes, like baby wipes. Sometimes I might even like buy beer and wine with those. So there might be a correlation between diapers and beer purchases. Means dad's taking care of the kids. Media preferences. Again, 98-year-old people in the nursing home probably are not going to use social media too much. They're probably going to be more inclined to do things like TV and possibly newspaper. Probably newspaper. Or Reader's Digest. I don't know. What do old men read these days? Is Reader's Digest? You guys read Reader's Digest? Yeah, my grandma always had one next to the toilet. She was a Reader's Digest reading person. Lifestyle trends. This goes into like values and motivators and things like that. Different clusters of things that make people who they are. This is a critical question right here. This may be the most. This is a principle right here. All right, yeah, let's talk about the principle for a second. The principle is this. You need to know how your behaviors affect other people. You need to understand how your behaviors affect other people. That is a principle of PR. That's going to be on the final, I guarantee it. And it's not just, again, it's not just a principle of PR, it's a principle of life. To be an effective person, you've got to understand how your behavior affects the people around you. And this is something you've got to understand in terms of at the public, an organization public level, is how an organization is affecting people. Maybe good, maybe bad, maybe like no effect at all. But you got to understand that. And sometimes people get concerned about company initiatives. You guys heard of TransCanada?
Yeah.
You guys remember TransCanada?
Yeah.
What were some public concerns of TransCanada? Yeah, leaky pipeline, right. That was a company initiative, was to build pipelines from Houston all the way up to Canada. Yeah, exactly. Hence the name TransCanada. So a lot of people were concerned about that. They were afraid the pipe was going to leak and like damage their animals or their farm things or human life or get to the water table. They'd be drinking like oil sludge water. Does anybody else's water at home taste like oil, by the way? Yeah, it tastes like petroleum distillates. It's like lighter fluid. Like old school Zippo lighter fluid, not like butane. You guys remember Zippo lighters? They still sell them at Walmart. Oh, no, that's barbecue, that's a butane lighter. I'm talking about Zippo, where you gotta like pour the juice in there. It's like this, you squeeze it out of the yellow bottle, and then you get to like playing with it, you get drunk with your friends in your college, and you pour it on your arms, and hey, look at this. And wasn't there a thing like recently where people were setting their hair on fire in the shower?
Why?
Or something like that? Or setting themselves on fire in the shower. It was like pre-ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Does anybody remember that?
Oh, they wouldn't setting that guy's hair caught
Fire
on fire.
challenge. What?
His hair just caught on fire. They were setting their body on fire.
Yeah.
So this
When
is
he was
actually a
sitting in the
thing.
shower,
Yeah.
the fire just blew up in his hair. But they was doing like a challenge, like I think putting alcohol on yourself and then setting it on fire.
And I'm tempted to go to YouTube to look this up. Somebody look that up, like the fire challenge, whatever it's called. Well, that was an actual thing at one point. Anyway, so that's off on a tangent. We were talking about TransCanada. But you need to know how a company's plans even are going to affect people's minds. How people are going to react to hearing that their land is going to get eminent domained or taken away from them to build a pipeline. You've also got to know, this is pretty much a no-brainer, you've got to know the company's reputation with the key publics. And those key publics are the people that we talked about over the past 5 weeks. What are some of those publics? This is a review from 3 weeks ago. We've got, what kind of publics?
Community.
We got community publics. What else we got?
International.
International. We got what?
Media.
Media publics, yes. Media relations. What else? Employees, internal publics, and we've got a couple others that we talked about. Consumer, and then government. So we need to know the company's reputation with these different people. Does that make sense? We need to know stuff. We need to know stuff about stuff. We got to do research to be able to find it out. We also need to know, so we talked about, we need to know the organization inside and out. We need to know the publics inside and out. We also need to know the environment inside and out. And by environment, I mean things that stretch beyond most people's control, most companies' control. Things like laws and regulations. Well, it's simple enough. If laws or regulations are going to threaten the company's way of operating, then the solution may be to hire a lobbyist or to bribe somebody. I mean, in a lot of countries, bribery is, sort of like, I don't know, fines and fees. We pay a speeding ticket here, you pay a bribe in Mexico. Only it's a lot cheaper than Mexico. I mean, I think, what's the DWI in Mexico go for these days? Like $100 or something? What does it go for? How does it cost the United States? Don't answer that. Unless you know and... No, okay, never mind. Anyway, so fines, fees, bribes, I don't know, whatever it is. You need to know trends within the industry. Anybody, you guys are too young probably even to remember VHS.
I have
But I doubt you remember Betamax.
I heard about it.
You heard of
Dad
Betamax?
would talk about it.
Yeah, all the commercials you say, oh, it's VHS or Beta. And there's no more Beta. What else? I think Atari 2600's kind of made a comeback for a little while. At one point, a decade ago or something. Anybody have any records at home? Vinyl? Who collects vinyl?
My dad has like a
He's got a crap one? Okay. Does he still have a record player? Oh, so he can still play it. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
My brother does.
Brother? Okay.
I do.
You got a vinyl collection?
Yeah.
Like 7 inches or 12 inches? You got there's 7 and 12 and...
I've got a bunch of 12s, but I've got a couple 7s.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a record player? Okay. I still have a lot of vinyl. I don't have a record player though. What?
Even I said they still sell the record player, and some artists today they put their albums on vinyl.
I've heard of this phenomenon happening actually. A friend of mine was trying to con me into like spending like $100 or something to get a bunch of vinyl pressed here a couple of years ago. I'm like, no, that stuff's all not without a market. Sounds like a bad investment, not without a market. That was my response. All right, so there's different trends within the industry. One of those things is, some of it's like, what was it, planned obsolescence? You guys heard of planned obsolescence? It's like computers. I mean, we know computers are going to be smarter, faster, meaner a couple of years from now. So is there like desktop? Who owns a desktop? We got 1 desktop person, 2. I like desktops. 3 desktops. Everybody else has laptops. See, desktops were designed to, I don't know, work for a couple of years, fall apart, and then by then there's something way newer and way better that's more appealing. So by the time you're starting to suffer through a slow computer, there's something just waiting out there, tempting you to buy it. And plus, if something becomes obsolete, then you have no choice but to upgrade it. Planned obsolescence. Google that when you get a chance. Planned obsolescence. That's a trend within the tech industry. What's another trend within the tech industry? Within the industry. Trends within industries. Come on, name a couple.
Maybe like fast food, they're started going towards like dollar menus and stuff like that.
Yes, and they're getting rid of trans fats. The good stuff. Things that make fast food taste good. And are banned in some cities, I understand. Yeah, they're trends in fast food. What else? Well,
Trends in maybe like fashion.
yeah, fashion moves
Like
pretty
this
fast.
stuff
You're
that's
right.
kind of bad, yeah.
Yeah, there is. Things do come back. 90s nostalgia ought to hit any day now. Or has it already hit?
It is.
You guys remember when 80s was all, awesome, like a decade ago? 80s music? That'd be 90s. I mean, that was like my heyday. It's like any minute now, my youth is going to be like valuable again to somebody. All right. We've also got to know who the key competitors are, what they're doing, what they're up to. What they're going to do is going to stomp us next year so that we can, like, counter-stomp them. Make sense? Trends in the industry. We've already talked about that. All right, so what is the research process? There's actually a process to research. How do you guys, the people that have had research methods, what's the first thing you guys do in research? Oh, yeah, we're not going to make it through today. First thing you do, you state your question. You got to know what you're going to research. You say, oh, I'm going to go do some research. I mean, you could look at I don't know, crawfish production in Louisiana. You could look at I don't know, BP oil spill. What else is going on? ISIS. What the hell does that have to do with anything relevant to what you may be studying? So, but you got to state your research questions first. You got to ask, what do I want to know? And the thing is, when you carefully plan out your questions, has anybody ever gotten on the phone with somebody that you're going to... Has anybody done this? You ever tried to do an interview with somebody but you didn't have any questions prepared? How does that feel? And you don't want to do that. You want to know, whenever you plan out your questions, it keeps you from getting off on different tangents and looking at crawfish instead of interviewing the person you are about, I don't know, the new iPhone. Hypotheses. Who can tell me what a hypothesis is?
Educated guess.
What?
Educated guess.
I'm not.
She's saying
think
educated guess.
educated guess. There is truth to that. I don't really like that definition, but that it's not that bad actually for a definition. Educated guess. What I like for hypothesis is this, and it comes from education. It's like a prediction. It's a statement of a relationship between two variables. For example, here's a hypothesis. Men are taller than women. Two variables. Yep. Men are taller than women.
And that's true.
I don't know what the answer to that is, but let's set it up. Here's what it looks like. Here's what a hypothesis looks like. Men are taller than women. Up here we have a categorical, we have a categorical variable. We have men and women. So that variable is dichotomous. Now I'm saying there's actually like 5 different genders out there, but I'm doing this for simplicity's sake. If men are taller than women, then we have a dependent variable. This is the height. And then, I don't know, we take every one of you, we put you guys up against one of those mugshot walls or something like that. And it turns out men are average, I don't know, what's 5?
5'10".
I thought it was
5'9".
70 inches. And women turn out to be, I don't know, 67 inches. This is all hypothetical, actually. But our hypothesis is the statement between the variables. That is that men are taller than women. And then we don't prove this. This just offers support. This data offers support. We never really prove a hypothesis. We just find support for it. So what do you guys, what's a research question?
For what?
Anything. You give me an example, you just tell me what it is.
Is it like, are men actually taller than women?
Very good. Yes. That would be a very good research question. Are men taller than women? A research question could be anything. Research questions are a little less rigorous than a hypothesis, because with the hypothesis, somebody said it was an educated guess. That is true. You've got to have background to be able, you got to have some kind of background to be able to make a decent hypothesis. I don't have any scientific background for this on men and women. I do have anecdotal evidence. Usually boils down to, well, my dad's taller than my mom. All right, so that's what we do. We state what we're looking for. We figure out what we're looking for. We state our research questions. Then we move on. We go to secondary research. The secondary is kind of counterintuitive. See, primary seems like you would do it first, but that's not the case. You do secondary research first. Secondary gets its name because you're looking at research that other people have already done. These may be different assembled data reports, or reports. Could be assembled data sets. You guys have to deal with data sets, psychology and comm studies. It's like an Excel file full of numbers. That's a data set. All right, okay. Things like annual reports, customer profiles, different files you've got going on. Company website. I was doing some secondary research on Coca-Cola the other day. I was looking at their mission statement and philosophy and all that stuff. It's on their website. I don't have to interview people for that or run a survey to figure out what their philosophy is. I just go to their website and find it. Now, primary research, this is data you collect yourself. Excuse me. There are different methods for doing this. You may use surveys, focus groups, interviews, human experiments on human beings. We do a lot of that. I did some experiments on human beings. Oh God, it's been what, 2 years now? No, a year and a half? Seriously, when you do experiments on human beings, you have to get approval from a review board. Because what happened was different U.S. government, the Nazis, various kind of unethical groups have used human beings in different experiments. You guys may have heard of the Tuskegee experiments? They gave African American men syphilis to see what would happen to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, U.S. government right there. The Nazis did all kinds of horrifying experiments on Jews, trying to change their race. I mean, you guys have heard of these things. So now we have, all institutions have an institutional review board in which they make sure that your experiments are not going to, like, harm people or be unethical. Some things get through. You guys may have heard of the Stanford prison experiments. You guys heard of that? Where they had, like, one group was the prisoners and one group was the guards, and the guards would just get wilder and wilder and crazier, like beaten up and people were like traumatized by it. Things like that. So when I did mine, I had to go through an institutional review board saying, well, if you're going to do this, we need to, like, look at your plan and make sure you're not going to stick needles in people. You're not going to, try to change their race or like traumatize them for the rest of their lives, things like that. And I passed, because all I was doing was showing them a TV show. I was showing them episodes of Big Love. You guys heard of Big Love? I was showing them episodes of Big Love, and first I measured their attitudes towards polygamists. And then I waited a month, so they kind of forgot about that survey. And I brought them into my lab, and I showed them episodes of Big Love, and then I took readings on their attitudes towards polygamists afterwards. So just an FYI, polygamy may become a hot topic in the United States, because I found that positive portrayals of polygamists will actually lead to more identification with polygamists and more of a tolerance for people with polygamous lifestyles. That was my experiment. So anyway, I was proud of that, so I have to tell you guys about that. Now, negative portrayals. We see this also. And this is nothing new. We know that negative portrayals of different minority groups will generally result in more racism and intolerance. And so, as a result, we get the same effect when we deal with polygamists as well. So, that's a total tangent. And you guys are probably bored with polygamy. You better watch Sister Wives, though? Sister Wives fans, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, a few Sister Wives fans. Okay. All right. So what's your? Well, let's not. We'll talk about. I might use you guys in research then at some point. But if I do, then I'm going to have to pass the IRB. All right. So anyway, all right. So we do our homework. We see what's out there, and we figure out what we don't know but that we need to know, and then we collect that data ourselves using different surveys, focus groups, other types of observation experiments, things like that. All right, so after we've collected our data, we got all this information, we got this information, we've got to interpret what we have. We have to analyze it. We have to look at it, see what it means. After we do that, we tend to summarize it like a final report. And that final report is what creative people use to help define strategy, and later messages, and later tactics. All right, so there are different types of research in PR. Well, that's kind of a vague thing to say. Let's look at applied research. We may do strategic research. We use strategic research to help develop objectives and messages, benchmarks. Anybody know what a benchmark is? Test?
Yeah.
So think of it as a place where we should be. let's use that definition, a place where we should be. When I was in Texas Tech, we were looking at benchmarking other programs. We were seeing what other programs were doing and where we should have been as a program in relation to these other programs that were doing the same thing we're doing. Strategic research also looks at tools and techniques. I mean, just in general, this is what it does, tools and techniques of PR. But this is really kind of the heart and soul of strategic research. It's figuring this thing out over here, this area. What's going to make people think about it? This area, what's going to cause high elaboration? What kind of messages? What kind of strategies? Are people going to be more responsive to one-on-one communication? Are they going to be more responsive to, I don't know, a message that says, come download our information or something like that? I mean, there are many, many strategies out there. The strategies are what we use to achieve objectives. We'll get into that deeper another time. But we also do evaluative research, sometimes called summative research. Evaluative research is what we do to find out whether our stuff worked. Find out if our campaign was awesome, or to find out whether it was more of a whimper kind of a campaign and just didn't need to be done. So here we're developing the PR strategy, we're developing the campaign. Here we're evaluating the campaign to make sure we haven't wasted our time or to figure out what we need to do to tweak it enough to make it more effective. Man, I'm just not getting through this very fast. All right, secondary research. Here's some characteristics of that. So I've already said this. The data is already assembled. You need to collect background information. The dirty secret of this is that most people, I talked to this woman that does research for an advertising agency in Lafayette, Louisiana. Lafayette, Louisiana is actually a pretty hip place. It reminds me of Austin, like a smaller Austin 25 years ago, 20 years ago. So this woman tells me that her research pretty much consists of her getting on Google. So we used to not have Google. We used to have to use things like libraries and other sorts of resources. But now Google is where a ton of background information is gathered. We also get data from things like iPoll. We don't have time to look at this. We will go into detail on this in PR writing. You guys might check this out because if you're in any who else in marketing? A couple of people? You guys know iPoll has tons and tons and tons of awesome reports based on national data samples. Just an FYI. The census, you go to census.gov and see what comes up. And even the library, I mean, you can get access to all kinds of scientific journals, all kinds of information through the library that is not available online. But because you guys pay a student fee, how much is your library fee per year, per semester? You guys are paying for this. You guys go use the library. The library is connected to like some serious sources of information that you're not going to get from Google. You guys ever try to look up an article through Google and it says, oh, purchase this article for $49.95? Well, all that stuff's free through the library. Never pay for journal articles. All right, so a little bit more about primary research. Remember, this is the research that we do ourselves, our experiments, our surveys, our interviews, all kinds of focus groups, stuff like that. This is where we get firsthand information from people, usually within our publics, about whatever information we're looking for. We may talk to the people in the company, publics, lawmakers. It just depends on the public. It depends on what we're looking for. Ideally, you want to find out what motivates and interests these publics. So again, once you find out what motivates and interests these publics, you can push for high elaboration or find a way to get high elaboration out of them. make them think more about who you are, what you're doing, and hopefully persuade them to get on board with what you're doing. But you got to find what motivates them first. Things like lifestyles, values, things. Let's take a guess. You guys have taken these research methods already know the answer to these questions, but how is quantitative research different from qualitative?
Quantitative is how many, and qualitative is like quality.
Kind of. You're on to something there with the how many. Any ideas? What does quantitative mean? Numbers. Yeah, exactly. It has something to do with numbers. What does qualitative mean?
Maybe brand.
Brand? Yeah. Let's think about this for a second. Quantitative research tends to look at what, while qualitative research looks at why. So which one of these, which one is a survey or interview? Which one is quantitative? Right?
Survey?
Surveys are going to be quantitative. Exactly. They tend to be quantitative. They may have a qualitative component. They tend to be quantitative because you're just asking people generally, like from strongly disagree to strongly agree, how do you feel about the following statements? Then they'll ask you some statements. Dr. Madison's class is awesome. Well, 7. I strongly agree with that. Dr. Madison's a genius. Well, 7. I strongly agree with that. Etc. So we tend to we're getting numbers out of people, values. We're assessing different concepts in terms of numbers, so that later we can go play with them with using, I don't know, the chi-squares, ANOVAs, regressions, factor analysis, all kinds of different. There's a million different statistical operations we can do that can inform us about the people we're dealing with based on their quantitative responses to our questions. Now, obviously, surveys is a quantitative method. Interviews is a qualitative method. Interviews allow us to find out why people think a certain way. It tends to help us look at how people construct reality. It's like every one of us has like a Lego box, right? A Lego box of Legos of reality, little chunks we pick up, I don't know, at school, from our families, from our friends, at church, and from pretty much anything we do in life, from TV, from internet, whatever. We get this big box of Legos, and then we start building our reality, how we think about reality, how we construct reality. Interviews allow us to find out how people go about constructing their realities. Does that make sense? Does the Lego box thing work? Kind of works. It works for some people. Who all played with Legos when you're younger? So it should work. All right. Well, we'll bring back the Lego box theory here another time. We got to get through this stuff. Quantitative research consists of surveys, content analysis. It means analysis of the content of things. For example, Breaking Bad. I want to do a content analysis of Breaking Bad, so I'm going to code it for violence. I say, all right, well, this guy punched this guy, he kicked this guy, he shot this guy, he smushed this guy in a vice. Wait, was there a vice smushing, or was that a different show? Okay, all right, so you get the idea. So you code for violence. You're using quantitative means to do it. Mapping is a newer thing. This is looking at like relationships. I don't know. A friend of mine did her dissertation on journalists using Twitter, and she looked at like number of tweets and the connections. And she looked at the maps among different journalists in the United States, and made this big, lovely quantitative map based on different criteria. So mapping is newer. I don't know if mapping's on the test though. Yeah, you can look it up. Mashup is another thing going on that's hot. Not among quantitative researchers as much as journalists. people will say, my favorite is the Chicago crime map. And this thing's old. It's been around like 10 to 15 years. Where you can look at, I don't know, greater Chicago area, and you end up with this like map, a heat map of where all the crimes last night occurred. Violent crimes, non-violent crimes, like things like drugs and parking tickets, things like that. Now, I'm not going to ask you to know each of these different types of sampling on the test. So you can probably just blank out for a second. But I do want you to know this. Sampling is often going to determine your results. When you take a sample of people, you can't interview everybody in the United States. You got to take a sample of, I don't know, 2,000 people. And there are different ways of doing it. Random sampling. Be very suspicious of anybody that says, hey, I got a random sample. The chances are they're lying. Or they're mistaken. That's probably more likely. They're probably just mistaken. Because random sampling means every person within a sample has an equal chance of being selected. There are just too many factors that make that impossible or difficult. One of the more interesting ones, systematic random sampling means you have a group of people, and you have some system for sampling them. I don't know, you might roll the die and like every third person, you select every third person and then contact them. Stratified random sampling. This tends to refer to, you're going to want, oh damn, I forgot what stratified was. It means that your sample should reflect the larger population. Like if I'm going to do a sample of people in Nacogdoches, well, we got like 43,000 with students, something like that. Well, I'm going to want to do a sample that reflects like the, I don't know, the ethnic, the economic, the educational makeup of the sample. I mean, of the community. So if I interview like all white people in Nacogdoches, I'm going to get a totally different set of opinions and readings and things like that than I would if I did like all African Americans or all Mexican or Hispanic. I hate putting Mexican and Hispanic together. There's differences. There's cultural differences and values, things like that. Mostly what we use a lot of times is non-random samples. A convenient sample. This means we find warm bodies. Like if I want to do a study on, I don't know, polygamists or attitudes towards polygamists, and I pick you guys. That's a convenient sample. You guys are going to give me distinctly different answers than I would get if, I don't know, I went to like Houston. Anywhere in Houston you got, feedback from somebody. Quota samples are very much like a stratified random samples. You want to get a certain quota of different types. I got pulled into a study in Las Vegas. You guys heard of a show called The Bad Judge?
Yes.
When does this come on?
I think it just came on.
Oh, okay, it just came on. Okay, last April I was in Las Vegas and somebody like pulled me in. I was drinking this. Oh God, it was the weirdest thing. It was like this. It was this drink. It was like a juice of like kale and ginger and apple and celery, which I normally drink this stuff anyway, but it also had gin in it. And so I was walking down the Las Vegas Strip. This woman says, "Hey, are you a male? I don't know, like 28 to 40 or something like that?" And I said, "Why, yes, I am." And so she dragged me in there. They put me in front of the bad judge and made me watch it. And then they collected data on me and my opinion. So I met the quota. Apparently I was a white male between a certain age that they anticipated was going to be watching the show. And they dragged me into it. What do you guys think of the bad judge? Never seen it? It was funny. That's funny. I thought it was kind of like Night Court, but you guys don't remember that. We're almost out of time here. All right, volunteer samples. I mean, it's warm bodies. Some of the ways we measure PR outcomes are people's awareness, comprehension, how much they recall or retain of our campaign messages. their attitudes or preferences towards the bad judge or towards whatever thing. Changes in people's behavior. You can't measure changes in demographics, but demographics will determine a lot of our outcomes. I'm sorry, I'm zipping through this because we've only got 5 minutes and I don't want to leave you guys with a bunch of slides to have to look at later. I've already said this. This is a Lego box thing. It's best to do qualitative research in a natural setting. A lot of times people have some have like couches in their home and things like that, or interview people at their homes. Because when people are in their natural environment, they tend to give more honest answers. They tend to feel less constrained by other factors. But there's something to keep in mind. We're looking to understand how these people construct reality with qualitative research. There are different types of interviews. I'm not going to go through these. I think you guys can kind of intuitively know this stuff, but make sure you take a look at these slides. So I'm zipping through the last 4 of these in the next 4 minutes. You guys know what focus groups are? Who's participating in a focus group?
I think up to one, like a semester now or two.
Okay.
Mary Kay.
Okay, Mary Kay focus group. Okay, I haven't heard about that, but that's exactly, it sounds like something that they would do for that. Anybody do the PRSA ones last spring? Outdoor Pursuits, Rec Center? Nope. Okay. All right, download the slide. You guys can look at this. Domino's focus group is actually a commercial making fun of focus groups. Especially Milk is a real focus group, but it's incredibly boring. So I wouldn't watch more than like a couple of minutes of that to give you an idea. They're fighting over it's like a group of people, and they're looking at the researchers are watching a group of people as they fight over what's the white cap is better than the blue cap on the milk. So take a look at that when you get a chance. Not as good as Breaking Bad, but Game of Thrones. All right, what do we got here? There are some different rules that will operate for the web as opposed to like in-person interviews. But some of the stuff is the same. You want to establish with... Oh, wait, hold on a second. How many more of these do we have left? All right. Okay, wait a second. Now, these web considerations, we're getting into a different territory here. But still, here's what we got to do. We got to establish objectives, determine different criteria and benchmarks, where we should be. We've also got to select measurement tools with the web. What are some measurement tools with the web? How do we measure stuff with the web? What kinds of things? Like Facebook. How do you know that your post is awesome? How many likes you get? Exactly. How do we know like a person could be awesome or popular? How many friends they have? Exactly. So web measurements. There are different web measurements we need to consider when looking at different stuff on the internet. We talked about environmental scanning. I'm just going to leave you guys to look at this slide because we're now out of time. Sadly, we're not going to get to the Trans-Canada videos because the Trans-Canada videos are pretty awesome.